Hey, what's up YouTube? Sapper back with another Dungeon Defenders video. For this video we're going to be looking at the different blockades that are in the game and trying to find out which one is the best. Okay, so for these blockades we're going to include the Viper's Fangs, include the Arcane Barrier, we're going to include the World Tree, we're going to look at the Skeletal Orc, we're going to look at the Maw of the Earth Drake, and finally we're going to look at the Spike Blockade. Alright, so we can keep things even, we're going to set up all the blockades in the same way. For one, they're going to all be using the same totem, and to make sure that we can really see how all the blockades perform, they're all going to have more generalized defensive things instead of some of the more offensive shards that you can put into totems. So they're all going to be using this totem. This totem has the sharpened spikes, which is upgraded all the way to give it a 30% chance to stun enemies for 3 seconds. It's going to have fortification, which will increase the health by 34%, and then finally it's going to have shielding guard, which has a 25% chance to put a bubble on the shield when it takes damage. And then for the lanes, we're going to put the equivalent of 2 blockades per lane for all of them. For the Maw of the Earth Drake, it is twice the size of the rest of them, so that one will only be 1. And then so that the blockades don't die so fast, there's also going to be a flame aura, just one single flame aura on each lane before it. So the first one that's going to be up is going to be the Squire with the spike blockades. So like I said, we'll basically just spawn camp all of the spawns, and then we'll put a single flame aura to help weed out some of the smaller trash, and then 2 blockades on each one. Alright, so we started off with 285 mobs, and then when we finally lose, we'll see how many we have left. Alright, so it looks like we lose our first blockade with 131 enemies left. And then now we have enemies going towards the crystal, and we have 80 enemies left. So it looks like it took away approximately 200 before everything was said and done. Alright, and then you can see here that we had 44 out of 285 enemies left when the crystal was finally destroyed. Okay, so the next hero up is going to be the Abyss Lord with the Skeletal Orcs. Now the Skeletal Orcs, these ones are 40 DU for each wall instead of 30, and then they're also a little bit smaller. Now I do think that even though they take up more DU and they're a little bit smaller, I do think that they do more damage than all of the other ones. And then they also have the added benefit, if you're actually using the Abyss Lord, then they have the command where you can give them extra benefits. So for this test it is a little biased against them just because you know, we're not getting the full benefit from them. However, just used as a blockade like this, they definitely do seem to fall behind already, just in the size that they can block off and the cost. Alright, so you can see starting on this map we're going to have 212 enemies. So it looks like we have 112 enemies left when the first blockade goes down. With 72 left, it looks like that they're fully through and working their way towards a crystal. And then we have 27 mobs left when the crystal is destroyed. So the next one that's going to be up is going to be the Viper's Fang. So now another thing to note with the Viper's Fang is one of the big benefits that this one gets is it takes ground enemies and turns them into flying. So one of the popular builds with this is to put Skyguard towers behind them, because anything that they lift up are going to get killed by the Skyguard towers. So we didn't do that with this build, so it is important to note that these ones would perform quite a bit better if we were on a map where we were using a build that could use that. So we're going to start this one with 359 mobs, so quite a bit more mobs than what were on the other two maps. But there's also more lanes, so. So we're at 245 mobs when the first one goes down. And then looks like we're about 200 mobs when they break free. And then we have 172 mobs at the end of it. Alright, for this next test we're going to be on the mob, the Earth Drake. And like I had said, this one is twice the DU of the other ones, but it's also twice the size. So for this one I'm only putting one per lane instead of two. So one benefit to the Maw of the Earth Drake that isn't showcased in this video, which maybe I'll do another video where it is since you're only having one per lane, it'll be a lot easier to level these up, and you can level up your defenses a lot more because you only have one blockade to level up. So you see there that looks like that we had about 66 when the first one was broken. And then it looked like that we had 43 when the core was destroyed. $37 when the core was destroyed. Alright, so the next one that we're going to look at is the World Tree. Now it is important to note with the World Tree that it doesn't do any damage, and it also doesn't taunt. So using it straight as a blockade isn't the best use out of this. The World Tree is good to put some of the ones, like the ones that require a blockade and will increase the health of your other blockades or increase the damage of the towers around it. The World Tree would be best used with one of those, and then putting it like right behind your blockades wherever you need some player healing, because it also does that. Then if you put something like a Deadly Strikes in there to increase the range, then it can affect your flame auras and your blockades, and then any of the Dryad defenses that you put inside of it. Now with this one I did put a Skyguard tower up there just because I didn't want any of the flying guys to come destroy the inn before any of the blockades went down. Looks like the first World Tree was destroyed with 137, but it looks like that a lot of them went down all at the same time here. And then when the inn barricade was destroyed, we had 73 mobs left. Alright, then the final test that we have is the Arcane Barrier. Now for this one I did put a Skyguard tower on each one, just because I had one where the flyers completely disregarded all of the barriers and everything and went right towards the crystal. So I did put that up there to kind of either attract them or to get rid of those beforehand. It seemed like most of the time that they weren't always attacking the barriers anyways, so it shouldn't change too much in the outcome for this one. It looks like we had 79 left when the very first one went down. And then when the crystal was destroyed, we had 37 mobs left. Okay, so now that we've got one run with each blockade done, we can kind of look at the numbers that we got right away. So looking at this, as far as the percent of enemies that were killed when the first blockade was destroyed, the orc at 69% left and the mage at 52% left were definitely the worst. Although the Maw and Spike Blockade weren't that far behind. The Viper and the Tree, surprisingly, actually did really well for the first destroyed. Then when we look at the final enemies left after the crystal was destroyed, You see that some of them really cut up. A lot of them are pretty close to each other, with the exception of the Maw and the Orc again. So granted, this is only one run, and you know, the Orc had a lot more enemies to begin with. But just looking from this, it definitely looks like that the Maw and the Orc are the worst, with the rest of them all being fairly close to each other. Now, unfortunately, with there only being one run and there not being, you know, different maps on each one, I think what I'm going to do next is I'll do 10 runs for each blockade, and then I'll average those together, and then I'll do maybe 5 runs on each where I upgrade them to tier 1 before I start, to see how much that changes, see if any of them can make it through the first wave. Alright, so I think that'll do it for this video. If you like this video and you want to see more in the series, go ahead and like and subscribe. Until next time.